Okay, so I will start recording. So let us start. See the corresponding squares theory, right? Very briefly, what is it? Can you see this chessboard? And now you will know this position because it is fresh from the from our test also. You know, right? So many times this happens only in king and pawn endgames. Okay, it is not this corresponding squares funda is not there in any other endgame but king and pawn endgames only. Okay, and if you see, I had explained also to many of you, I think, who got it wrong. I did a review and then explained. But you see, what happens is the party which is trying to defend, it has to defend in particular ways, because see, like this, the pawn, white has an extra pawn and it is a bit advanced. And now black has to properly block it. So there are, see, whenever white goes to a particular square, there is normally one square, sometimes there are two squares, to which the black or the defending party also has to go to maintain the opposition or to maintain the whatever is the thing, I mean defense. Okay, so in this case white king goes to d6, right? White king goes to d6, then black king has to be there on d8, and then it has got opposition and he's able to defend it, right? If white king goes to c5, then black king has to be on c7, the number 2 that is marked, right? Okay, now interestingly, because of the geometry of the position, the numbers we have marked two square. Number 3, white king, where it correctly stands, c5, sorry, d5, black king has to be on c8. Okay, and how it is like this, how do we determine this? There is a way to determine. Okay, so you say that, acha, so first you identify the most advanced or the most critical square, like number 1 and number 2 are the most critical squares here that you should know, right? Just looking at it, you know, if king goes to d6, then black has to go to d8, and that you will mark it as 1-1 in your mind, right? Then if white king has got another escape, like coming to c5 and then trying to go to b6, to prevent it, black has to be on c7. So c5 and c7, these are the corresponding squares. You mark them as number 2 in your mind. Okay, this is what we have done it here. Okay, now there is a square c5 from which white can go to number 1 also in one move, number 2 also in one move. Okay, so you need to have a corresponding square on the black side from which he can go to his number 1 square and his number 2 square in one move. And there is only one square. Geometrically there are two squares. There is a d7 also, but d7 he can never be, because there is a white pawn on c5, c6, so which attacks d7 square. So d7 is not accessible to the black king. So what is accessible? Only c8. So c8 becomes the corresponding square for the white square of c5, right? c5 and c8. Because from c5 white can go to either of the squares marked number 1 and 2. Black also can go to his own squares marked number 1 and 2. Now you come back one level back. White has got 2 squares marked as number 4. Both of them we have marked as number 4. Why? Because from either of that squares, white can go in one move to the squares marked as number 2 and 3 for in white's position. Right? What are 2 and 3? It is c5 and d5. So from d4 and c4, from both these squares, white can go to either of these squares, 2 and 3. So that is why in white's camp we have marked the squares as 4, 4. But if you go to black's camp, now you will see the problem. To go to 2 and 3 squares, which are 2 and 3, which is c7 and c8, okay, there is no d7 accessible, there is no b7 accessible. Okay, so which are the only 2 remaining squares? There is b8 from which you can go to 2 and 3, and there is d8 from which you can go to 2 and 3. So both these squares become the corresponding squares for black. But can you see the problem now? They are apart. There is a distance between them of 1 square. They are not adjacent to each other. So while white has got his number 4 squares adjacent to each other. So let us say if white is currently on 3, black will be on his 3, which is c8. White goes to one of his number 4 squares, whichever one. Actually, it doesn't matter whichever one. Okay. Black will also have to choose one of the number 4 squares, either b8 or c8. which is so far is fine. But then white makes a lateral move and goes to the other square mark number 4. Okay, are you getting it? Now white continues to remain on number 4. Now black has to make a move. He cannot pass, right? This is like a Zugzwang. If he would have liked to pass the move, but he cannot pass the move. Now he makes a move. Now whichever square is he standing on mark number 4, either B8 or C8, the moment he makes a move, he will no longer be on a corresponding square of number 4. He will lose it. And the moment he loses it, then white gets the opposition. So let us say if he was standing on B8 when white makes the lateral move, now he has to go to C8. Now he is already standing on a square marked for number 3, and white is standing on a square marked as number 4. So next, white, what does he move? White also moves to a square marked number 3. So he is forcing black to play. Now black is already on 3, so he has to make a move. So where does he go? If he goes to a square mark number 1, white also goes to a square mark number 1, again with the opposition. So again black has to move. So the moment black cedes the opposition, now you are going to win it. This is the theory of the corresponding squares and triangulation. So always in such positions, one side or the stronger side has got a resource where he has got a special access to certain squares where the weaker side does not have got, and weaker side gets forced into a Zugzwang finally, and then it loses. So did you understand this explanation of what is this 1, 2, 3, 4 and everything? You tell me yes, no, or what. Come on, Srishti, Ansh.
Yes, I understood.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So this is the reason why. So why the triangulation is called, because see what is the triangulation? From white starts from number 3, then goes to one number 4, then goes to the other number 4, and then returns to either 2 or 3 depending on where black is there. So he that is what is called as triangulation. Okay, it moves like a triangle. He does not move from 3 to 4 and back to 3, because that if he does, then black will be able to defend. Okay, but because he goes from one number 4 to another number 4, and black cannot go like that, right? That is where he gains the move or gains the opposition and forces black. Okay, so this position is very, very important. Actually, more than the position, the principle is very important. So now what is the learning? In such positions, sometimes you have to know that there are corresponding squares. It is not every time it is there. Sometimes it is there. But you should be able to work out in your mind what are the corresponding squares, and then you should be able to then see if you have the advantage, then you should be able to. Typically, that is what you will have. You will have 2 squares from which you can go to either of the 2 desired squares, while the other side will have only one such square, and because of that he will have that. But the squares, exactly which one, you have to calculate. Okay, so you can have more examples. If you want corresponding squares, you will get examples of positions, you will get it easily, but you'll have to work hard to calculate it. It's not so easy. Okay, it is not very easy, right? And but you don't expect things to be easy now, right? So let us look at this position here. Okay, so now shall I take this on the Leach's board so that we can mark and thing, etc.? Let us take it. Okay, let's take it on the Leach's board. Why it is actually position is like coming down in the sense that black is at the bottom. So black has got a h6, no, a6 pawn. White has got a5 and c4, and king is there, on black is on e5. Okay, fine. So let me try to put this on board, here board, and actually flip the position. So black is coming here. Black has got a pawn on h6, a6. White has got a pawn on a5 and c4. White king, I think, is on b5, and black king is on e5. Is this correct? Yeah, this is correct, right? And who is to play? I think it is black to play. Okay, so let us put it, not white to play, but black to play. So analyze it. Okay, now let us analyze here and try to understand what is the corresponding square. Black to move. Okay. See, white is coming down the board. White is coming down the board. Okay. So you know what will white try to make a move? If given white to move, he is winning. Why? Because where will he move the king?
King c5.
King c5 will move. Now black has to prevent it. Right?
King d6.
King d6 is one, or king d4. Okay. So actually it is d4. So king d4 is the corresponding square for b5. Okay. Now white king cannot go to b5. He is on b4 currently. b5 he cannot go because of the pawn. He cannot go to c5 because if he goes to c5, then it's a clear win. So that anyway has to prevent. So what are the other squares that white has got access to? He is currently on b4. Corresponding square is d4 for black. Okay, it looks obvious that way. Now he has got 4 other squares. Okay, this, and this. We have to mark those and we have to see for each of those where will. Because right now black will obviously hold this, right? Now white cannot go to this square. But if white goes to this square, where should black be so that it is so that he will be able to hold it? Okay, because what happens is he has to be, I think the corresponding square for black is this, because from that square white will be able to go to this thing in one one move. Okay, in b4 he will be able to go in move, and from what is this, from e4 black can go to this one in one move. Then white has got one more square here. Okay, so actually just you will notice it now. So these are the key, first of all, this and these are the key corresponding squares. Now white has got 3 other squares. White has got 3 other square, not this, sorry. White has got 3 other square, this, and this. From all 3 of them, white can come to b4, right? Now black, how many squares does black have got from which he can come to d4? He cannot come from here because this square is not accessible, attacked by the pawn. So he has got this. Okay. This, while you can come, but this is never going to be a corresponding square, because if black king is so far away, white king is going to intrude here and win it. So black has got only 2 squares from which to come to d4. White has got 3 squares from which to come to b4. Okay. So that is the key for this position. Okay, so white has got an extra square. Now actually you can do, with little bit of effort you can do the mapping. I think white has got a3 of white is mapping to e5 of black, I think, and b3 is mapping to e4, and white has got a4 for which there is black does not have a corresponding square, and that is where he is going to miss out. So let us see if white manages to bring then king to d4. Yeah, even if white manages to king to d4, then also he wins. So naturally black tries to prevent it. So black plays king to d4. White plays king to b3. See, and black plays king to e5. Oh, b3 and e5. It is not b3 and e4. Okay, I also need to calculate exactly. But fine. So from this, white goes to a4. See, acha. See, 2 2 1 1. Okay, and 3 3. See, these are the corresponding squares. Okay, b4 d4, b3. Yeah, b3, how you get it is, if white king comes to c3, then black has to be coming at e4 and prevent him from intruding, right? So that is why 1 and 1 is like this, and 3 is like this, and now white is on a4, for which black actually does not have a corresponding square. Okay, so now black will move now to 1, and now white goes to, see, now white actually goes to the corresponding, he goes to this square. Now black moves to e3. Now white moves into the corresponding square of Black. Actually, instead of black getting into the opposition, now white has got into the opposition. Now white moves this, and now black also, black moves and white goes to the corresponding square of the opposition. And now it is a win for white after this. So let us see here. See what happens is, so white king went here. These and these are corresponding square. These and these are corresponding square. So the moment white went to A3, right? Let's go back. So king B4, king. First white king went to B3. White king can go to, actually he can go to A3 also, he has a option. But let us say he goes to B3, then black king went to A5, and now he went to A4, right? So B3, A4, and this one. That's how he came it. Actually, he can go like this also. Sorry. What am I? I think you cannot go to A3 here because you are losing the pawn. So you have to go to B3. You go to B3, then what does black play? Black has to go to
King C5.
King to E5. Not king to E4. If he goes here, then white comes here and white wins.
Then why not King C5?
Why not king C5? Where?
Yeah, before this move. Yeah.
No, white cannot play king C5. Huh? He cannot
No,
go.
not white. After
No,
white
like
plays
after
King
here,
B3.
black plays king c5.
Yeah, now King C5. Black.
Yeah.
Black plays Ocha. You are saying black plays king C5, huh? Okay. So then white will play C3.
King C6.
King C6, right? King C6. Now I think you are already. I can come to B4. No, better is, I think it is actually better is, I think I will come here.
Yeah, King D6.
King, you cannot go to B6.
No, D6.
D6, huh? Okay. So king to D6, and now where we should go? Let us push the pawn. You have to go to C6, huh?
Then King E5.
King
E4.
King C4. Now
Yeah, it's losing, I think.
now it is losing, right? Because this king will come here, it will go here. This is fine, this is fine, this is fine. All of this is fine. But finally, when you go here, the white king gets an entry and this pawn falls, right? So because of this, you can't do that. So when white king goes to B3, you are forced to come to E5. Okay, this is what you are forced to do. And now white goes to A4, and for which black does not have any corresponding square. Okay. So what does he do?
Yeah, whatever you do, white plays King B4.
Correct. Because now, if you go here now white is coming here with the opposition. So now you are winning this. Hey Uday, you missed the starting. Okay, right? So that's what, the moment white gets the chance for the opposition, right? Then he is able to convert this because he's a pawn extra, right? So just look at it here. King D4 was the first move. White king went to B3, fine, because he has to go to B3. There is no other way. He has to protect the pawn. And black king drops to E5. Now white king goes to A4. Now for this, from which he can next move, he can go to 2 and 3. But black king is already on 3. Okay, while white king next move can go to 2 and 3. So no matter what white does now, if he goes to e4, then he goes to a3. He has got one more square, and now he's going to force black to either choose one of the thing. Okay, the moment he chooses the corresponding square number 3, white enters it, right? Then he enters it, then he goes to the corresponding square number 1, and that's it, right? After this he wins, right? So and remember here, directly going to c3 was not going to win. This was not going to win because black is going to go to the corresponding square. He already has access to that. Now even if you move the c5, it is not going to help. See, these are again the corresponding squares. So black is holding the vigil, and if he pushes the pawn further, then black will be able to win the pawn because the black pawn is interfering with white's king movement here on b5. So because of that, any further pawn push, black will be able to block it and win the pawn. Okay. All right. So this is the technique, and we will see one more example here. So we'll see one more example here. See, already you come to know that, I mean, just looking at it, you know that white's currently, when white is on e2, black has to be on e4, right? Those are the corresponding squares for black. Okay. Now white has got two more squares, e1 and d2, from which he can come to e2. Okay. But black has got only one square from which he can come to e4, which is that? From which square can black come to e4 square? Come on. You know it. You can just see it. F5. F5, right? So white king, when he goes to d2, black king has to go to f5. Okay. So that if white king returns to e2, then black king will come to e4. Right. So f5 and d2 are corresponding squares. e2 and e4 are corresponding squares. Okay. So far so good. But look at it. White has got one extra access square, e1. In fact, white has got two extra squares, e1 and d1. From either one of them, he can go to either of the other two squares, d2 or e2. But black, unfortunately, has got no such luxury because the white pawn and the black pawn is blocking one square, right? There is a black pawn occupying d5, because of which black king does not have access to d5. White pawn is on f4, because of which black king does not have access to e5, and black king does not have access to d4 also, because there is a white pawn on e3. So because of which, you just looking at this, you can calculate that e2 e4, d2 f5, and white has got the other two squares, e1 and d1, from which black has got no corresponding squares. So white is going to use this to win. So what does white do first? White does first, immediately white goes to e1, and here there is a tactical thing. He does not even have to go to d2. Okay, he does not have to go to d2 because he does not have to protect the pawn. Why does he not have to protect the pawn? Can black capture the e3 pawn?
No.
Because they are connected pawn, the other
Because
pawn.
f5.
Yeah, f5, and then you cannot catch the pawn, right? So because of which, this is an even more advantageous position. He does not even have to go to d2, directly comes to e1. Now you ask, where can black go? Black goes to f5, but which was the corresponding square for d2? Now white is going to occupy d2 and saying that, okay, now what? Now black comes to e4, white comes to e2. Now saying that, okay, now I have got the opposition. Now what do you do? So now black says that, okay, I cannot move my king, but let me try to break the connected pawns by moving d4. Okay, which is okay, but white then captures the pawn and black king captures it, and white king moves to f3. Is this a win?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Can black successfully block the f pawn?
No.
No.
Because he
No.
cannot come to e5, he cannot come to e4. He can go to d5 and then try to go back. But the moment he goes to
But
d5,
king will go to g4.
king will go to g4. Then if he goes to e6, then where will the white
King
king?
g5.
King g5. And remember, the moment king accesses a square in front of the pawn, right? He occupies it, then it is a win. Right? We had seen this key squares. He occupies a key square. So white king will get access to g5, which is a key square of the f4 pawn. The moment he gets access, his king reaches a key square, then he is winning it. Right? And black can never hope to catch the other pawn, and because the moment he tries going after the other pawn, then this pawn will run through and become a queen. Right? So this is a clear endgame win. Right? So again, we saw how the corresponding squares help to win a game which otherwise was difficult. Right? See, just at the beginning, what we had seen is position. If white directly, in fact, what we were saying is directly king d2 leads a draw after d4. Okay, what we were thinking is king d2 and black king will go to f5. Yeah, if black king goes to f5, then it will be, but black king has got an extra option, which is of breaking the pawns on d4. And if e takes d4, king takes d4, this is a draw compared to the previous other position. This is a draw. Why? Because there, where was the black king? White king was on f3 already. He could go to the key squares, but here white cannot go to the key squares of the pawn. Right? So this is a draw. Okay, fine. What you do is join back. I think we'll just cover 5-10 more minutes. 10 more minutes I have to cover. So please join back. I will open the what do you call